The power when you treat parents as equals, and they should be equals. They actually do know their children better than the rest of us. Our culture says if you become a parent, you're supposed to know what to do, and that's ridiculous. Parents talk too much, and kids will only listen to the first two sentences, and then they will block you out. We have to trust children that they are going to grow. Children grow. Children figure things out.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Hori with A New Lens, framing your perspective one story at a time. Today, my guest is Sari Goodman of the Parental Edge. I'm so excited to talk to Sari today about all things parent coaching. Sari, I'd love you to just share a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much for having me. So, I am a certified parent educator and coach, and I came to that via the field of education. I started out as a special ed teacher and then an elementary school principal, and I came to parent coaching because I saw the challenges that parents had. People were coming to me and asking me for help. And I saw that parents are just, I think, an underserved community. Where do they go just to ask a question? And so I started answering the questions and really thought, wow, this is very cool. So I started the Parental Edge.
I'm so happy that I know you and that there is a resource out there for parents like what you're providing because I think it is more necessary now more than ever before. And for anyone that's never really heard of parent or parental coaching, how would you describe it to them in a couple of sentences?
I would describe it as having somebody in your back pocket, someone to ask a question when you're just not sure. I mean, there's all podcasts and books and extended family telling you this is what you need to do and this is what you need to do. Who do you ask? With someone with my education background and psychology background, and I do a lot of research, I can give really backed up answers and help people get through all the periphery noise to get to what they need. And the other thing is that when you read a book or you listen to a podcast, it's very general. And every family grouping is unique. And so sometimes what sounds good, like it sounds I should do it this way,
Yeah.
it doesn't fit your family. So I help you fit your family. And that's the difference.
Got you. So I know that you spent a lot of years in education and that you were a principal. And how do you think all of those years that you spent in education, and tell us a little bit about that, how that prepared you for doing what you're doing now, and the most important things that you noticed throughout that journey that really prompted you to say, okay, I really can help parents.
So it's really when you're in a school setting, it's not just about teachers and kids, it's also about parents. It's a whole grouping. And one of the things that I brought to my schools when I came, the different schools I worked at, my special ed background was I created student study teams. So if there was a child who was struggling, we would call in the parents and maybe the therapists or and do assessment, and we have these big meetings where everyone was valued, the parents, the teachers, everyone had equal value, and we would really discuss and focus on what was best for the child. And I think sometimes what happens is parents feel undervalued when they go to these meetings with these professionals who are talking in this language that maybe I don't
Yeah.
understand. I think in education we talk in all three letters and numbers, and everybody's supposed to know what that means, and you don't, and you don't
Yeah.
feel as a parent as an equal person. But that was very important to me, and that's what I saw, the power when you treat parents as equals, and they should be equals. They actually do know their children better than the rest of us. Then you get really a really nice team that's really giving like a giant hug to the kids.
Yeah, I think that's so important because I'm not a parent myself, and I know you are, but nothing prepares you for becoming a parent, right? It's like you can read all of these books, but it's like, we go to college, we learn, we get degrees, we, get trainings, we do all this thing for our career or the area of study that we decide to embark on. But it's like for parenting, it's like, you read this, you get the same five books when you're pregnant that everybody gives you. And then it's like, you're then, okay, then the baby's born and you're supposed to know how to do all of this stuff. And it's really like, not that I don't think that's true, right? That you just are born to know how to parent. You have to learn these skills.
Well, our culture says if you become a parent, you're supposed to know what to do. And that's ridiculous because I could say, well, I'm a doctor. Does that mean I know what to do? No. I'm a teacher. Does that mean I can teach calculus? No. And so these kinds of cultural, I guess, demands on parents make them feel less than when there's a struggle. And there will be struggles. It's because we're human. There will be struggles. And so then if I'm supposed to know what to do, then if I reach out and ask for help, does that mean I'm a failure as a parent?
Hmm. I think that brings up a great point and a question that I've really been thinking about is what do you think are the biggest struggles, for instance, facing parents today in 2025 that maybe didn't exist 5, 10 years ago?
Well, the pandemic and the isolation is still with us. I
Hmm.
think that one of the biggest misconceptions is, well, everybody's back in person, so everything went back to normal. The fact is that especially social emotional learning, children who were stuck at home for 2 years didn't have the same opportunities to develop social skills. So we
Hmm.
might say that, well, they're 10. They should be doing this already. Shouldn't they be doing this already? Well, no, because they're actually more like an 8-year old.
Hmm.
And the same thing is happening in schools where the curriculum expectations didn't change. Fourth grade is still fourth grade, even though there was a lag in education. And so kids are under pressure, teachers are under pressure, kids are under a lot of pressure to be a fourth grader when maybe they're more like a third grader. And
Hmm.
so these are misconceptions. And what I try to teach parents is if you want something from your child, we need to see where they are, not where we want
Hmm.
them to be. And
Right.
we backtrack and say, oh, we want them to be here, so, but maybe they're here. We have to go here and bring them up.
How do you deal with any pushback or any, you know, on the part of the parent when when you're bringing that up to them and saying, like it's normal that your child might not be at the level that you wish them or hope them to be, but this is what I see and where your child really is. Like, how do you actually say that to a parent?
I say things, I use analogies a lot. If you have a boot, would you tie and you want it, and all the laces are loose, would you tie it first at the top and then
Mm,
say, oh, I can walk? No, you can't. You have
that's
to
a
go
great
to the bottom.
bottom.
And so I use a lot of analogies and a lot of visuals. When parents are hesitant or not quite sure that what I'm saying is correct, it's because of these kinds of cultural expectations. Or
Hmm.
a grandparent might, or an aunt or uncle, or another, or a parent with other children who aren't your children will say, why aren't they doing that? Shouldn't they be doing that? And so you've got that pressure, and it feels like if my child can't tie their shoes, if my child can't do subtraction, then this worry of they won't be successful in their
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
And so one of the things I suggest to parents is let's not look 10 years down the line. They will be
Hmm.
okay. Let's look at now. It's really focusing on the now.
Do you find a correlation between top performing parents are the ones that would contact you more because they are hoping or wanting their child to be a top performer and they feel that something is slightly amiss in the development or in the process of or in the area where their child is developing? So is that a correlation that you see in the types of parents that contact you for your work and services?
Actually, those aren't generally the parents that contact me because of that culture of I have to be successful, and if I reach out for help, I'm not a successful parent. So I usually I can really help them, but and where I would help if that person would call me is where I help is the increased anxiety that that creates in the family. And
Mm,
why is my child just blowing up all the time? Or why am I blowing up all the time? And it's because
yeah.
of this anxiety. And can we just bring the temperature down? And so I help families just bring that temperature down. The goals stay the same, the goals can
Yeah.
be the same. Just let's bring
Hmm.
the temperature down. I get calls from parents whose children have diagnoses, say ADHD, or on the have on the autism spectrum, because parenting is just a little bit different,
Hmm.
and it's not always clear. Children have There's a lot of support for children in terms of therapy, educational therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, all the therapies, psychology. It doesn't it's very hard sometimes to transfer what's the children are learning to the home. So I help with that transition. So I kind of
What's one strategy that people that you can share with parents about how to bring the temperature down in a household that may be what like what you mentioned, a lot of anxiety on both parties' part.
Yeah. My favorite one is for I tell parents just stop talking. Parents talk too much. They're talking, 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 and kids will only listen to the first two sentences, and then they will block you out. But it takes a lot of energy to block out, and then when a parent realizes they're being blocked out, they talk more and louder, and then you see how the temperature rises. And the other thing that I see is parents will say the same thing over and over again. If you don't study, you won't be successful. If you don't do your homework, I say, how many times have you said that same thing? And they'll say, I say it all the time. And I'll say, and how is that
But
working for
working,
you?
exactly.
So stop talking. That brings the temperature down. Stop talking and listen.
That's such great advice for all of us. Not just parents dealing with children, but basically anybody, business people, relationships, your brother, your sister, whatever. But that's a great question that I have, which is like, okay, if they're not doing your homework, I mean, how many different ways can you say, are you doing your homework? Or, I mean, so what do you suggest in that case where I agree with you because they tune out? Like my nephews tune me out if I'm saying the same thing. So, but you still have to ask that question. So, what is the strategy for that?
Well, the strategy is to be curious. Parents aren't curious enough. I wonder
Hmm.
why this is a struggle.
Oh, I like that.
So,
Yeah.
what is the obstacle? Kids want to be successful. There's no question. They want to be successful. Why are we assuming they don't understand that? And why are we saying, I want you to be successful? Well, duh, yeah. They do want to be successful, but there's something blocking them. So, what is it? And so, if you get curious, like I worked with one family whose child wouldn't do their homework, and I do a lot of in home. So I visited in home, and by the second time, I could see that it wasn't that the child wouldn't do their homework, it was the child couldn't do their
Oh.
homework.
Hmm.
And then I said, have you ever had an assessment? Because, with my special ed background and teaching background, I'm saying I don't think this is a case of won't. And it looks like won't, right? A child doesn't know that they don't know. If the teacher
Mm-hmm.
assigns something, don't you think that the teacher knows what I should be able to do? So if I can't do it and I'm struggling, well, maybe I'm just stupid. And then what does a child who feels they're just stupid do? They refuse. I don't want to
Right.
feel stupid. I'm not doing this. And so I help parents piece that out of can we just get curious as to why this is happening? And then we can address it and make it happen.
That's amazing. I think that's a great tip for everyone out there is to get curious and then to be able to ask questions, right? And that opens up the door for communication, which we all really need. So, what do you think are some of the recurring reasons now that parents contact you? Like the things that you see are recurring themes of what parents are really needing support from you right now.
I get a lot of calls when there's tantrums and the kids are calling their parents names and saying, I hate you. Embarrassment because the children are almost holding their parents hostage, because if you're
Hmm.
out in public and you don't want your child to throw a tantrum, or you're at a party where you know everybody and your child has a tantrum, so you have to give in. These are the kinds of things that people call me for. They call me for the child won't put their phone down, and I don't know
Mm.
how to get them to put the phone down. And I really, saying things like, I really have no choice and I just have to do it, or my child will fill in the blank. And so I help
Mm.
people, parents take their power back. I think that
Hmm.
word power, though, is uncomfortable for parents because we don't want to be these
Hmm.
overlords, right? And seem like, me parent, you child. They don't, right? But the fact is that children do not have the life experience or the wider view to make the kinds of decisions for their health and their safety that they have to. And parents do have that life experience that can make decisions for their health and their safety. And so, in order for parents to do that, they do have to have the power to do that. And so, they do
Right.
have to have their power back.
That's so true in so many instances. What do you see if you were to kind of look at parents that you think are generally doing a good job parenting? What are some of those qualities and characteristics that you see that they have in common?
They are very clear in what they want from their children.
Mm.
So I used to, my best little anecdote is when I was at school and greeting the kids in the morning, and parents would let their children out of the car and say, make good choices. And we would all laugh because, like, what does even that mean? Make good choices. And the fact is that if you want your child to be great at school, the minute they get out of the car, they have just forgotten everything you've said.
Mm.
So let's be clear, right? So parents who are clear, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go brush your teeth. It's not go get ready for bed. For a child with ADHD to tell them to go
Oh,
get ready for bed, forget it. They're just not capable. It's not possible. It's go brush your teeth. And for some kids, it's go wet your toothbrush.
mm.
Put the toothpaste on until you can get to the point where you can say, brush your teeth. And what we do in special ed is when we are trying to help a child learn a new skill is we break it down into teeny, teeny, tiny pieces.
Mhm.
And so what I help parents understand is a simple request like go brush your teeth actually has a lot of steps to it.
It does, yeah.
So these are the
Yeah.
kinds. So parents who are clear, who break it down in smaller steps, who follow through, right? If a child says, "Can I just do this one more time?" Sure, you can do this one more time, but if the parent then walks away to do
Mm.
something, the child's doing it 5 more times. So now one more time has no meaning.
Mm.
If you
Mhm.
say one more time, you stay there until it's one more time.
Right. So clarity, consistency. This is so good. What's like another one that you see?
Simplicity,
Oh, simplicity. Great. Hmm. Don't overcomplicate.
right? And also, and the big one is, be at your child's level where they are,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? If you
I
are
think that's
expecting them to do something that they are not capable of, and just forget all the should haves. Shouldn't my child be doing this? Shouldn't my child just like erase that word, those words from your vocabulary? It's not about shouldn't they, and they
right.
will. They will. They will. Just stay focused on the now, and they will.
That's one thing that I really, that's so important. And one thing that I really like about you is that you're always so encouraging and you always bring hope to any situation. And I really appreciate that. And I'm sure that your clients do too. But how do it's easier said than done to erase the shoulds, right? So how do you coach them on in the daily life and on the daily, business to because our society now is so programmed with that about shoulds for everything. And same thing for me as being a coach and a business coach. I'm always telling people you're shooting all over yourself, right? And it's like that's what we're going around doing all the time in our general life. But I think parents are under so much pressure, especially we live in Los Angeles and this pressure to like get your kid into the right school and you want them to succeed. So how do you coach parents to give them practice so that they can really start to remove those ideals of what they think their child should do?
Yes. So, what I try to do is build parents' confidence in their parenting. And I think some of the shoulds come from a lack of confidence. Because if you're confident that you are parenting, and if you, I'll ask parents, do you have confidence in your child? Do you
Mm,
think your child will? Or are you worried that they won't? And if they're worried that they won't, that's a conversation. I think that we have to trust children that they are going to grow. Children grow. Children figure things out. And some of the mistakes that we parents want to try to erase from our children, like getting a bad grade in school or getting in trouble for not doing their homework or being mean to a friend and having those kinds of social repercussions, not saying thank you to grandma.
mhm,
They need to make these mistakes because that's how they learn. Because again, if you just keep telling them, you have to get good grades, you have to be nice, you have to be kind, you have to, it's talking, 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 and
mhm,
they don't hear you. They have to, how did
mhm,
we learn it? I mean, how did
mhm.
I learn it? And sometimes I say, how did you learn this? It makes parents think, well, I guess I made mistakes too and I figured it out. Right. So let's let them figure it out and they will. Let's have confidence in them. And
Mhm.
then we don't need the shoulds.
I love that. I love that. It's so true that we all need to make mistakes in order to figure out what we don't want so that we can know what we do want. And if we don't make mistakes, how will we know? And I think we have to let people make mistakes in all different types of situations. And it does require a release and a detachment and this idea that, okay, it's going to be okay. We will get through this. We will survive. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of the times now in society, it's like we're trying to control all these things that are really not in our control because we want to make everything like this perfect, even little field where there's no bumps, there's no rocks, there's no chance of falling. And it's that's really not life, right? And if we don't build that resistance and resilience, especially in young people, what happens? That's actually a question I have. What do you see happening if if there that resilience and that failure isn't if a child doesn't learn how to fail and get up? What do you see are the repercussions of that?
The repercussions are children and adults, because there are some not so resilient adults, is
Hmm.
blame. That's when you're seeing all the blame. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's the fault of this. It's not my fault. It's that this happened. It's all
Hmm.
the teachers are to blame. My parents are to blame. My sibling is to blame. The school is to blame. School's a waste. School doesn't, right? That's what happens. And I think that there's a misconception. What I don't like is when we're suggesting that parents let their children fail. And I don't like that word. I don't like that phrase because I would never let my children fail, frankly. I mean, I helped my kids. I was there for
Hmm.
my kids.
Hmm.
Failure? No, I wouldn't let my children fail. Make a mistake? Yes.
Yeah, make a mistake. Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
and I think that's where sometimes parents' hesitation is when we're saying, you have to let your children fail. And most parents are going to go, no,
Hmm.
because failure is a big thing. But make a mistake? Yeah, I'll let them make a mistake. And I like, again, in my analogy, you're on a trapeze, there's a net. Well,
Hmm.
you still have to try to catch the other swing. But
Hmm.
okay, if you do, there's a net. So what we want kids, we want them to try to catch the swing. And if they don't, we're the net.
Right.
But
So
there's a
what,
net. It's not a
yes.
failure.
Yes, that's so true. That's a great analogy, and that's a great reframing and rephrasing from failure. I think, yes, making those mistakes so that we can learn from them. So, what do you think has been like one of your greatest, catch the other side of the trapeze success stories in your recent work?
One of, I would say that along those lines, I had worked with a family with a child, multiple kid family with all different personalities. And this one, I helped them understand the child's personality. And so what was happening was the very active family, all the kids are in sports and curriculars. And so, you know, you would spend the weekend going to this child's practice and this child's game and this child's performance. And so the whole family would go as a family to their siblings' things. Well, this child would fall apart, just completely
Mm,
fall apart. And I said, your child can only take 2 events a day, 2 events. And they said, but my other children and
mhm.
my older children, and I said, it's okay to treat children differently if that's what they
Mhm,
need. We don't have
mhm,
to treat every child the same. We have to understand who this child is. And so if
mhm,
this, we know this child can only handle 2 and can hold it together for 2 events a day, his and a sibling or 2 sibling events, and that's it, then and then we will honor that. And so I help them decide, okay, well, maybe a neighbor can take them and they can have a play date and he can not be in that environment. And then assuring them that this is a way to build up to 3.
mhm, mhm,
But
mhm.
if you're trying to push into 3, it's not going to work because there's no step. He needs a step. He needs a stepping stone. He needs a landing before, you know
Mhm.
how you climb up a million steps and you're
Yeah,
okay, but if you step
yeah,
on a landing, then for
right.
catch your breath, you can
Take
do
a
more.
break.
That's the
Hmm.
idea. And it worked.
Got it. Got it. So, how do you encourage parents to keep the faith, keep the hope? I mean, it's an exhausting job. I mean, no question. It's the biggest job that you'll ever do in the history. I mean, I can't think of anything more important when you decide to become a parent to be in it to win it, right? So how do you encourage parents to like, especially now? I mean, it is so hard to be a parent right now. It is so hard to be a child right now. It is not the same as when I grew up. It just everything was much more simple. I mean, how do you encourage people and parents to just keep going and to keep learning and to hold that hope and that confidence?
When I work with families and I learn the parents' personalities and the children's personalities, and I give them strategies and tools, I also tell them this is the same strategy you're going to use in 2 years when your child, because your child's personality is your personality. We're not changing personalities, we're changing responses to, and this is going to come up again because this is your child's
Mhm.
personality. So you're going to use the same type of tool, and let them know this is just, we're not making a fairy tale castle. We're dealing with
Exactly.
real life. But now you
Mhm.
have the tools, and that makes the difference. And the other
Mhm.
thing I do is if you've been my client, you just call me. 2 years from now, you have a question, you just call me. And I know, and because I know you and I know the kids,
Mhm.
I can give a response. Parents will call me and want a response, and I don't know them or their family, and I'll say, I don't know you or your family, and it's
Hmm.
really so unique.
Hmm.
So I say I really want to get to know your family better
Yeah.
before I.
I think, yeah, it's so personal. And I think that's what makes you so great at what you do. And that every time you talk about the kids and the families, like your face lights up. So, what keeps you passionate about doing this work and engaged in this work? I know you are because I know you. So, what keeps that excitement for you going?
Well, number one, it comes from a deep understanding that parenting is really challenging and it can really feel isolating.
Hmm.
And there's really nothing more fulfilling than me helping parents who say, I'm so glad you've changed our whole family. We're calmer, we are more confident. And I tell people about you all the time. That's the best. That's the best. And I'll tell you, actually, the biggest compliment I get is when 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 2 years from now, a parent who I worked with in the past calls me and say, "Can I just ask you a question?" It's like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that's got to be so rewarding. So, before we close, Sari, I wanted to ask you some really good takeaways that parents can use right now. So, what do you think is a strategy that parents can use today when they see this video to start improving their parenting skill set? That's one question.
Well, number one is stop talking so much, listen more. And if it's not, if it hasn't, if the strategy you're using hasn't worked till now and you're using it and using it, stop and look for something else.
Hmm.
And then under, look at you appreciate the uniqueness of your family. What can you say? I think that sometimes when we're struggling with our kids, it's really hard to see the wonder of it all. And being a parent is all about wonder. And wow, if you can just sit back and just watch your child and just enjoy the wonder, it creates a reframe.
Hmm.
This is really hard, but this is really wonderful. That's what I would say.
That's so beautiful. And I think we need that in the world with everything right now, is just to try to find that joy and that fun and that wonder. And even with the small things, just to look at them like, oh, just to really find joy and wonder in things. That's such great input. And what do you think, Sari, makes you really unique in terms of like, why would somebody contact you versus actually there aren't that I don't think there are that many parental coaches out there, but why would somebody contact you versus somebody else?
Here, there are parent coaches, there are psychologists and therapists that that help parents. My unique corner of the world is the fact that I have a school background. I think I'm the only parent coach that I know that has a school background, and so much of raising children is dealing with school and homework and play yard and play dates. That's unique. The fact that I go into homes is unique. The fact that I do, even if you're not in Los Angeles, I'll do virtual, but I do it from the point of view of an educator to help you with your parents. And also, I don't work in an office. You're
Hmm.
not going to see me on Tuesdays at 10 and then I see you again on Tuesday at 10. No. When
Hmm.
you work with me, you can call me anytime. Well, not in the middle of the night. But we might talk on Tuesday at 10 and Wednesday afternoons, your child is, it's happening. You call me. We're not
Yeah.
waiting until Tuesday. And I
Hmm.
think that kind of on call access, because that's what parents need. I don't think parents need necessarily, yes, a Tuesday at 10 appointment works, but you also need, well, what happens when we hang up? What about then? And so you have me. And those are my differences that I don't think you're going to get anywhere else.
Right. That's amazing that you offer that. One of the questions that I had is what about a friend wants to refer you, right? I've had friends that I've wanted to refer you, but it's like a little bit sticky because you can't really say, well, I think you need to talk to Sari because you need a parent coach, even though they probably do. So how does somebody in that, like in my situation, refer you and kind of ease the person into that? It's like a kind of sticky conversation if they don't come to you and say, I really need a parent coach.
Right. Well, you might hear them say, I'm so exhausted, or everything with my child's a negotiation, or the school's emailing me, or any of those kinds of, my child won't listen. You can say, oh, have you ever considered a parent coach? Because it doesn't mean you need one. It just means there is such a thing. And I don't think a lot of people know that I exist. That's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I write a blog and a newsletter and I'm on Instagram. And I just really want people to know I exist.
Right. And that's what I want for you too. And that's why we're doing this interview because I think that your service is so needed and valuable. And I know you personally, and I can recommend you with the highest recommendation and confidence. And I really want people to know that you exist because I know so many parents that are struggling. And like you said, it's so isolating and they feel like they're not doing it right. And they think they could be doing it better. And they think that they should be doing it better. And it's like, as a coach myself, those are not feelings and emotions that are very good for us to keep carrying that around. So there's a way that we need to release that and to get help because we're not perfect and we're not born knowing how to do so many things that we are putting that expectation upon ourselves and it's really hurting us. And so I want parents to find you and to be able to use you as a resource. So in closing, what are the best ways for people to contact you, to find you, to reach out to you, and how does that process work and what does that look like?
I have a website, theparentaledge.com, and I have a newsletter that has tips that comes out monthly if you want tips. And I have a calendar there. If you just want to book a time and just chat, I'm there, just book a time. I give a lot of tips out on Instagram. It's at the Parental Edge. And I think the newsletter, the Instagram, the website, I have a lot of blogs with, I just really want to help parents. So it's just there. It's there if you want it. I have free downloads. Just help yourself.
Is there anything, Sari, that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share, or anything else that you wanted to share for anyone watching this or listening to this?
I think we covered a lot. I think that I just really want to emphasize that when you become a parent, you shouldn't expect yourself to be an expert. And when you have your second child, you're not an expert on that one either. Even though you've already had one, you're still not an expert. I tell parents a story. When I had my first child, I had been teaching and done research and been a research assistant, and I knew all this stuff about education. And then I had my own child, and the first time he said no to me, I just like fell apart. Like, what do you mean you said no? And it just like all that education just goes right out of your head. You know why? Because parenting isn't emotional. It's not research, right? It's emotion, 100%. And if we understand that it's really just about emotions and love and growing, we grow as people. I mean, I think that I'm a different person because I've learned from my kids. They've taught me something. They've taught me a few things myself.
Hmm.
I
Thank
remember
you.
when I was going to send a package to one son that was away at camp, and I was with the younger one, and I went to UPS, and sending it overnight was like so much money, and so I was going to send it in 2 days, and my son, the little one, looked at me and goes, "He's your son. Send it overnight."
That's so cute.
So
That's so
yeah, so they
good.
teach you.
Yeah, I like that. That'll be our tagline. He's your son. Send it overnight.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much, Sari, for your time. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. It was great.